On the 12th of October, 1990, inside a federal courtroom in Boston, a legal dispute that had quietly spanned 15 years came to a definitive close. The court ordered the Eastman Kodak Company to pay $909 million in damages to the Polaroid Corporation and to immediately cease all production of its instant cameras. Overnight, millions of consumer cameras were rendered unusable. It was, at the time, the largest patent judgment in corporate history, a decision that permanently scarred the world's most famous photography company.
Says Kodak must stop selling its instant cameras and instant film tomorrow. That means instant headaches for the thousands of Central Floridians who own a Kodak instant camera. The film supply is gone.
Well, so far today I've gotten at least a dozen phone calls, mostly inquiries asking about what should we do.
And camera owners were very concerned.
Probably I'm going to contact Kodak and ask them what to do about it. Either give me a camera that I can buy film with or get a refund.
Popular history often attributes Kodak's ultimate decline to the advent of digital technology at the turn of the 21st century. Yet, the roots of its institutional crisis lay much earlier, buried beneath decades of private ambition and corporate friction. For nearly 20 years, Eastman Kodak and Polaroid enjoyed a remarkably lucrative arrangement. From its industrial stronghold in Rochester, Kodak manufactured the chemical negatives that powered Edwin Land's revolutionary instant cameras. To the outside world, it appeared to be a natural alliance between an established industrial titan and a brilliant pioneer. Yet, within Kodak's executive suites, the relationship was viewed with increasing unease. The Kodak's leadership grew deeply uncomfortable, having to rely on an independent company whose protected patents threatened Kodak's long-standing dominance over the photographic market. What followed was a quiet, deliberate attempt to break that reliance, a strategy that would ignite a bitter corporate war and alter the fortunes of both institutions forever.
Welcome to the Discovery Clock series.
The Eastman Kodak Company was established in Rochester, New York in 1892 by George Eastman. By replacing heavy glass photographic plates with flexible paper roll film, Eastman transformed photography from a specialized trade into an everyday consumer habit. Over the following half-century, Kodak built an unprecedented industrial empire. By the mid-20th century, the company manufactured over 80% of the film and processing chemicals used in the United States, establishing an almost complete monopoly over the global photographic market. But 300 miles east, in Cambridge, Massachusetts, a very different institution was taking shape. In 1937, a 28-year-old former Harvard student named Edwin Land founded the Polaroid Corporation. Land's early business was built on his invention of synthetic light polarizing sheets, a technology used in sunglasses, optical instruments, and military equipment during the Second World War. In 1943, Land conceived the idea of instant photography after his 3-year-old daughter had asked him why she could not immediately see the photograph he had taken of her. In November 1948, Polaroid launched the Model 95, the world's first commercially viable instant camera. The initial inventory sold out within mere hours. However, Polaroid was primarily a research laboratory, not a large-scale chemical manufacturer. While Land's team designed the camera mechanisms and early black and white film, the company lacked the industrial capacity to produce chemical film negatives at a global scale. The two companies had maintained a modest commercial relationship since the 1930s, when Kodak purchased polarizing filters from Polaroid for its camera lenses. The relationship would continue to grow from there on. In 1957, as Polaroid attempted to develop instant color film, Edwin Land approached Kodak with a new proposal. Polaroid would design the complex dye chemistry for instant color photographs, and Kodak would manufacture the negative materials inside its plants in Rochester. But to make that mass production possible, Polaroid entrusted Kodak with its most closely guarded trade secrets, disclosing the proprietary chemical formulas and technical specifications required to coat instant color film. The contract was bound by strict non-disclosure and non-compete clauses legally prohibiting Kodak from using Polaroid's secret formulas or patents for its own products. The result would be Polacolor, launched in 1963. The film was an immediate commercial success, and Kodak earned a reliable profit on every roll manufactured. The contract, signed in December 1957 by Edwin Land and Kodak's research vice president Dr. Henry Utze, created a mammoth enterprise. By the mid-1960s, Polaroid was paying Kodak over $50 million a year, worth more than $594 million today, making Kodak the world's sole producer of instant color film negatives. Yet, beneath the immense revenue, Kodak's leadership was beginning to feel unease by the new partnership. Instant photography did not merely offer consumers a new camera, it eliminated the need for commercial film processing, photo finishing labs, and photo paper, the most lucrative pillar of Kodak's global empire. Every instant picture sold was a picture that never went through a Kodak processing lab. And whilst the public celebrated Edwin Land as the genius of instant photography, Kodak executives in Rochester grew increasingly uncomfortable, operating as a back-end contractor, supplying the chemical foundation for a product that was actively eroding their own core business. In 1968, Edwin Land approached Kodak with his most ambitious innovation yet, the SX70. Unlike earlier instant photography, which required users to peel away chemical-soaked paper, the SX70 featured an integrated film unit that ejected from the camera and developed automatically in broad daylight. Hoping to continue their 30-year partnership, Land offered Kodak the opportunity to co-develop and manufacture the complex chemical negative for the SX70 film, just as Kodak had done for the Polycolor. However, Kodak's chairman, William S. Vaughan, and new chief executive, Louis Eilers, viewed the SX70 differently. The Kodak executives realized that a fully automated, clean instant camera posed a direct challenge to Kodak's core dominance over traditional amateur photography. Insisting on greater control, Kodak demanded that, in exchange for manufacturing the SX70 negative, it be permitted to market its own yellow-boxed instant film for Polaroid cameras. But Edwin Land, determined to protect Polaroid's proprietary invention, firmly refused. The negotiation ended in a bitter stalemate. Rather than remaining a contract manufacturer for Land's revolutionary new camera, Kodak decided to break off cooperative efforts. Under CEO Louis Eilers, Kodak abandoned plans to produce film for Polaroid and instead committed its vast industrial resources towards competing directly. In Rochester, Kodak launched a covert corporate initiative codenamed Project PL976. The mandate instructed Kodak's research division to design a complete instant photographic system, both camera and film, to rival Polaroid. With Kodak's development efforts still floundering, in late 1972, and with the SX70 finally available in stores, immediately after its regional launch in Miami, Kodak engineers managed to obtain a large quantity of Polaroid products and rush them back to their factory in Rochester for analysis. By dissecting Land's camera and drawing upon the chemical knowledge gained during their 12 years of manufacturing Polaroid's negatives, Kodak's chemists accelerated work on a rival film chemistry, a decision that would place Kodak on a direct collision course with Polaroid's patent portfolio.
George Eastman, big businessman and philanthropist, famed as inventor of Kodak and Kodak Film. Here, posing in the 1920s, Eastman gave more than $75 million to various philanthropic organizations. And he began it all as an amateur photographer.
Inside the laboratories of Kodak Park, the directive from the new CEO, Walter Fallon, in 1972 was uncompromising. Deliver a commercial instant camera to the market as quickly as possible. Yet designing a rival system without violating Polaroid's intellectual property proved an extraordinary hurdle. Edwin Land had built an almost impenetrable legal wall, securing over 1,000 patents covering every element of instant photography, from internal optical mirrors to chemical pod geometries. Under the terms of their original agreement, Kodak was required to give a 2-year advance notice before shutting down any film negative production. Kodak would use this mandatory transition period to put pressure on its rival. While Polaroid began scrambling to build its own chemical plants, Kodak immediately hiked the prices on the film negatives Polaroid was still forced to buy, having no other global supplier, raising rates by 10% in the United States and 50% internationally. Kodak then served a formal notice that at the end of the 2-year window, it would permanently cut off all negative supply to Polaroid, while publicly declaring plans to market its own yellow-boxed instant film. Kodak research directors, Dr. Albert Sievers and Dr. Richard Tweet, struggled to develop an alternative chemical mechanism that could bypass Polaroid's patents. Under relentless deadline pressure from executive leadership, Kodak's engineering teams made fateful compromises, incorporating hardware mechanisms and film layer designs that drifted dangerously close to Polaroid's protected patents. On the 20th of April 1976, Kodak formally unveiled its long-awaited instant photographic line at a high-profile press conference in New York. The company would introduce 2 new cameras, the hand-cranked Kodak EK4 and the motorized Kodak EK6, powered by Kodak's new PR10 instant film. Kodak's celebration, however, would only last less than a week. On the 26th of April, 1976, just 6 days after the EK camera launch, Polaroid filed a landmark patent infringement lawsuit in the US District Court in Boston. Edwin Land accused Kodak of misappropriating 12 foundational patents covering instant camera mechanics and film chemistry. The 2 photographic titans, bound for decades in a lucrative supply partnership, were now locked in the largest patent litigation battle in industrial history. The legal battle dragged through federal court for more than 5 years, before trial officially opened in October 1981 in Boston, presided over by US District Judge Raya Zobel. Edwin Land took the stand as Polaroid's star witness, testifying at length about his life's work and describing how Kodak had misused confidential technical disclosures shared during their 12-year manufacturing partnership. After 4 years of legal battle, on the 13th of September 1985, Judge Zobel issued a historic 122-page decision finding Eastman Kodak guilty of infringing 7 foundational Polaroid patents covering instant camera mechanics and film chemistry. Shortly after, the court granted a permanent injunction ordering Kodak to immediately halt all manufacturing and sales of its instant photography products. Kodak appealed the decision, but on January 9, 1986, the US Court of Appeals upheld the injunction, forcing Kodak out of the instant photography market unless it changed its patent. The operational fallout was catastrophic. Kodak was compelled to shut down its entire instant camera division, reassign factory workers at Kodak Park, and launch a massive customer remediation program. To compensate 16.5 million consumers whose Kodak instant cameras were rendered useless overnight, Kodak offered cash refunds, company stock, and product vouchers, costing the firm hundreds of millions of dollars in direct remediation and inflicting irreparable brand damage. Because American patent trials determine guilt first and financial penalties second, a follow-up trial was held to calculate the precise monetary penalty Kodak owed Polaroid for lost profits. In court, Polaroid demanded nearly $12 billion in damages, a staggering sum that exceeded Kodak's entire corporate net worth at the time. Kodak, maintaining its defense, offered to pay just $177 million. On the 12th of October 1990, Judge Mazzone ordered Kodak to pay Polaroid $909.5 million in damages and pre-judgment interest, A penalty later settled in July 1991 for $925 million. It became the largest patent judgment in corporate history for its time. For Edwin Land, the end of his corporate career had arrived even before the final trial verdict. Following the costly failure of Polavision, an instant home movie system, Land stepped down as Polaroid's chief executive in 1980. 2 years later, on the 27th of July 1982, Land would resign as chairman, severed all ties with the company he had founded 45 years earlier, and established the Roland Institute for Science to return to pure physics research. Edwin Land would pass away in March 1991 at the age of 81, having lived to see his patents fully vindicated. Without Land's visionary leadership, Polaroid struggled to navigate the digital transition. In October 2001, just 10 years after receiving its historic court settlement, Polaroid filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Its assets were liquidated, but the brand was eventually acquired and revived by dedicated enthusiasts thriving in a niche market. For Eastman Kodak, however, the defeat marked the beginning of a long corporate demise. Severely weakened by legal fees, customer compensation, and the loss of its instant film division, Kodak entered the 1990s financially hobbled. Although Kodak engineer Steve Sasson had invented the world's first digital camera in 1975, executive leadership repeatedly delayed its commercial rollout to protect traditional film profit margins. But on the 19th of January 2012, the legendary icon of American photography filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, selling off thousands of its foundational patents to survive. Yet, in a striking historical twist, neither brand has vanished completely. Driven by the Gen Z and millennial generation, seeking tangible, tactile media in a digital world, analog photography has experienced an extraordinary resurgence. By 2026, the global photographic film market expanded into a $600 million industry, with annual wholesale film orders increasing by over 120% since 2020. Globally, consumers buy more than 20 million rolls of film each year, forcing Kodak's factories in Rochester to run continuous shifts to meet demand, while Polaroid thrives once again as an iconic brand in retro instant imaging. What began in 1957 as a secretive partnership between two industrial giants ended not with one company conquering the other, but with both surviving into a new century, reminders of an era when chemistry and human ingenuity transformed the way the world preserved its own memories. Hello everyone, thank you for watching the video and for your patience and support. Please consider subscribing and sharing the video, and as always, see you in the next one.